Hey guys, Carlos Colon here with Georgia Permanent Homes, and today we're going to be talking about mixed-use properties. What is it? Mixed-use properties, maybe you've heard this term and maybe you haven't before. I'm going to explain what it is, and I'm also going to explain some of the differences you need to look out for that people get mixed up. I want to talk about zoning versus uses, okay? Those are not the same thing, okay? And this all relates to mixed use, by the way. So, zoning. What zoning is what an area or a piece of property is intended for or zoned as. So, is it intended for residential use, agricultural use, commercial use, and then we get mixed use as well as part of it. And then, whereas use is actually, what is it actually being used as? I'll give you an example. You could have a residential zoning that is currently being used agriculturally, but the zoning rules and regulations between those are different. So as long as you're not breaching any of the rules and regulations, it may not be a problem. What do I mean by that? So as long as you're not living in a subdivision raising chickens, you'll probably be okay. And it probably works better even the other way around. If you are in an agricultural zoning and you decide to build a building on your property, that's probably okay. It's probably no issues as long as you have your proper setbacks off your property lines and everything else. But if you try to do that in a subdivision, not so much. There's a lot stricter regulations. So, and that's according to your zoning guidelines. Your use itself is, what is it being used for? So agricultural allows you to be able to use properties exactly what it sounds like. Whether you're farming, like you're growing crops, or you're raising cattle, okay, well, you're not really supposed to be doing that under a use of residential, whether it be R1, R2, or R3. And so it's not like people can just have sheep in their apartment or sheep in their third of an acre property in a subdivision. It doesn't work that way. So you have to understand that's what it means by use, okay, versus what it's zoned for. And if you go in the state of Georgia, if you go to your local tax assessor and you start to look at the zoning, you're actually going to click on your own property, for example, and you'll see what you're zoned for. And then you're going to see that the use, under most of your websites, you'll see the use as well. What is it currently being used for may be different from what it's actually zoned for. So, going along those lines, this is a little more common when you have these mix-ups in commercial property. And I'll give you a perfect example with my personal background is when you have cheerleading and gymnastics gyms that are running out of industrial warehouses. This is very, very common. Happens all the time. The building and the property itself has an industrial commercial zoning. However, the use itself might be public assembly, where people, meet and gather in order to, do cheerleading or training or whatnot. And so the zoning does not exactly match the use. It is still a type of commercial use, but it may not be what it was intended originally. So, with that said, how does this apply for mixed use? All right, so when you are taking a town and you use, let's say it's got a square as a town center where most of everything's commercial. As you go farther out, you'll get to more residential properties. In between your residential and your commercial, somewhere along the lines, you will find where commercial properties start to meet against residential subdivisions. Okay. Mixed use properties are typically used to buffer the difference between a commercial area and a residential area. The reason being is because it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an in-between. A good example of a mixed-use property would be a two-story building where the first story alone might be used for shopping centers or local stores or shops, and the second floor might be used for, or maybe all the stories above might be used for residential housing. Okay, it might be rental properties, or it could be condos that are for sale or just apartments that are for sale. And that's okay. Those are mixed use properties. Mixed use because there was a completely different zoning on top of, actual uses as well. So you could actually also have, like, within the commercial part of it, you could have a mechanic shop, small little, like, oil change type of shop, along with just a storefront right next to them. In fact, the building that we're filming in right now has an oil change center right next to us. Even though we're an office complex, next to us is a lawyer's office, and next to them is a bed selling place. They're not a mattress firm, but they're like that. Okay, these are completely different commercial uses, even though they're within the same commercial building. So, and the same commercial property. But the best way to think about a mixed-use property is going to be that combination of, okay, a property that has both residential or commercial or two completely different types of uses in some way, shape, or form, not just one or the other. That's it. So that's the best way to explain those. There are different kinds of mixed-use properties, and also there's a line of, at what point does residential become commercial once you've got an apartment complex, for example, because there's a line there. So if you have questions about this, speak to your local ordinances or look them up, or speak to your local courthouse and ask them. Planning and zoning does a great job of this. So if you have any questions for us or we can help you in any way, shape, or form, give us a call at 770-314-1285 or check out our website for some great properties at georgiaperimeterhomes.com. Thanks.